Every morning, Amelia sat on the same bench in the community park near the affluent neighborhood. Blind since birth, she came accompanied only by her guide dog and the sound of the world around her. Her father, a busy millionaire named Victor Dahlin, never approved of these solitary walks, but after Amelia turned 17, she insisted on small freedoms. Victor, though hesitant, hired private security to discreetly monitor her, though on this particular day, none were nearby. The park became Amelia's escape from the stifling protection of her father's mansion. She memorized every path, every turn, counting steps between benches and recognizing trees by their scent. Her guide dog, Bella, a golden retriever with gentle eyes and patient demeanor, had become her constant companion over the last 3 years. Together, they created a rhythm that felt like freedom. "Just 30 minutes, Dad," she negotiated that morning over breakfast. "Bella needs exercise, and so do I." Victor had frowned, his coffee untouched. "Take Marcus with you," he insisted, referring to his most trusted security guard. "I'm 17 now," Amelia reminded him. "I can't have someone watching me all the time." Their relationship had grown more strained since her 16th birthday. Victor's protectiveness increased proportionally with Amelia's desire for independence. The loss of his wife during childbirth had left him terrified of losing the only family he had left. What Victor didn't know was that Amelia had started timing the security detail's rotation. She knew exactly when they changed shifts, creating a 15-minute window when no one watched her. This small rebellion gave her the only moments when she truly felt like herself. Hidden behind a row of hedges, a young homeless boy named Leo watched the girl from a distance. He had noticed her routine over the last few weeks. Despite his circumstances, Leo had a protective instinct that had grown from years on the street, and something about Amelia's innocence and solitude made him pay closer attention. He began to recognize suspicious activity, the same man pacing too close, always lurking in the shadows. Leo had spent 4 years surviving by his wits after his mother's boyfriend kicked him out. He'd learned to notice patterns, to read people's intentions before they acted. The man watching Amelia moved like a predator, calculated, patient, waiting for the perfect moment. That morning was unusually quiet. Leo had slept beneath the park gazebo, waking to the sound of early birds. He gathered his few belongings, a backpack containing a change of clothes, a water bottle, and a dog-eared copy of a fantasy novel he'd found in a recycling bin. He was about to head to his usual spot by the coffee shop dumpster when he saw Amelia arrive, without her usual shadow of security. "Perfect timing," Leo muttered, seeing the suspicious man appear from behind the public restrooms. The man wore casual clothes, but moved with military precision. Leo recognized him vaguely. He'd seen him with Amelia's father months ago, always serious, always scanning crowds. But something had changed. The man now watched Amelia with focused intent. Leo moved closer, pretending to pick up cans from a trash bin. The man didn't notice him. Street kids were invisible to most people. As Amelia waited peacefully while her dog sniffed the grass, the strange man made his move. Leo's heart pounded as he noticed the man suddenly grab the leash and pull Amelia by the arm. "Come with me now, and don't make a sound," the man hissed, his voice just loud enough for Leo to hear. Bella barked once, confused by the stranger holding her leash. Amelia's face transformed from peace to panic in an instant. "Who are you? Let go," she demanded, her voice rising with fear. Without hesitation, Leo lunged forward from his hiding spot and tackled the man to the ground, causing a chaotic scene in the park. His small frame carried the force of desperation and surprise. The man, though stronger, hadn't expected anyone to intervene. "Get off me, you little." The man's words cut short as Leo landed a blow to his jaw. Amelia screamed, disoriented, her hands reaching out to find Bella's familiar fur. The dog circled back to her, pressing against her legs protectively. "Stay back," Leo shouted to Amelia, grappling with the man who now had him pinned. Someone called the police. An elderly couple walking nearby pulled out a phone while a morning jogger rushed to help. In seconds, the attacker realized he was outnumbered. He shoved Leo hard against the ground and tried to flee, but the jogger, a former college athlete, caught him before he reached the park exit. "Are you okay?" Leo asked, approaching Amelia cautiously. He was breathing hard, his knuckles bleeding. Amelia nodded, her hands trembling as they found Bella's fur. "Who are you? What happened?" "I'm Leo. That man was trying to take you somewhere." He spoke plainly, without dramatizing. "He's been watching you for weeks." Amelia's face paled. "Watching me? But my father has security." "Not today," Leo said. "Today you were alone." Nearby residents formed a protective circle around them as sirens wailed in the distance. Leo stood awkwardly, suddenly aware of his dirty clothes and the suspicious glances directed his way. But he stayed beside Amelia, describing what was happening around them in a calm voice until police arrived minutes later. Police arrived quickly, but it was Leo who explained exactly what had been happening. His memory was sharp, and he described every moment he had watched the man stalk Amelia over the past weeks. At first, the officers were skeptical of a homeless boy's testimony, but as he spoke, Amelia confirmed she had felt someone following her days before. Leo's detailed observations couldn't be ignored. "He started showing up about 3 weeks ago," Leo explained to the officer taking notes. "Always wearing different clothes, but the same walk. Military, like he was on patrol." The officer, a veteran named Reynolds, exchanged glances with his partner. "And you noticed this because?" "Because I notice everything," Leo said without pride or defensiveness. "It's how I stay alive." Amelia sat on a bench nearby, a female officer beside her. She clutched Bella's leash tightly. "He's telling the truth," she called out. "I felt someone watching me last Tuesday. I thought I was being paranoid." The attacker sat handcuffed in a patrol car, refusing to speak. His wallet contained no ID, just cash and a prepaid phone. Officer Reynolds scrolled through the call history while his partner photographed the man's face. "You said you've seen him with her father before?" Reynolds asked Leo. "Not with exactly. Near. He was part of the security team. Always. Standing by the car when her father picked her up." Victor Dahlin was called immediately and arrived minutes later in a luxury car, flanked by security. The Mercedes screeched to a halt at the park entrance, and Victor practically fell out of the back seat, his face ashen with fear. The usually composed businessman looked disheveled, his tie loose and hair uncombed. "Amelia!" he shouted, pushing past the police tape. 2 officers moved to stop him until Reynolds recognized the millionaire and waved him through. Victor froze when he saw Amelia crying and holding on to a boy in ragged clothes. His expression shifted from relief to confusion to suspicion in seconds. The millionaire's first instinct was anger. Who was this boy touching his daughter? "Get away from her," Victor snapped, stepping between them. "Amelia, are you hurt? What happened?" Leo stepped back immediately, his hands raised slightly. The brief connection he'd formed with Amelia severed by her father's presence. He recognized the look in Victor's eyes, the assumption that someone like him must be part of the problem, not the solution. "Dad, stop," Amelia said firmly, reaching out to find her father's arm. "He saved me. This boy saved me." "Saved you from what?" Victor demanded, looking from his daughter to the police officers surrounding them. Officer Reynolds approached, his expression grave. "Mr. Dahlin, someone attempted to abduct your daughter this morning." This young man intervened. "Abduct?" Victor's face drained of color. He instinctively pulled Amelia closer. "That's impossible. I have security." "Not today, sir," Reynolds interrupted gently. "According to your daughter, she was alone this morning." Amelia's fingers tightened around her father's sleeve. "I wanted some time to myself, Dad. Just 15 minutes. Victor closed his eyes briefly, processing this information. When he opened them again, he looked at Leo with new awareness. The boy stood apart from the group, shoulders hunched, eyes alert for any sign he should leave. As Leo stood up and respectfully explained what had happened, Victor's expression slowly changed. He listened intently as Leo described the pattern of surveillance, the careful timing, the deliberate approach. "May I see the suspect?" Victor asked Reynolds. The officer hesitated. "We haven't established identity yet. But yes, briefly." They walked to the patrol car, where the attacker sat staring straight ahead. Victor peered through the window, and his entire body went rigid. "Alvarez," he whispered, recognition and betrayal washing over his face. Leo, who had followed at a distance, stepped forward. "You know him?" Victor turned, his expression haunted. "Edward Alvarez. He worked for me for 3 years." Leo pointed to the attacker, who was now in handcuffs, and said something that made everyone go silent. "He wasn't just any employee. He was one of your bodyguards, fired months ago." I remember because he used to stand closest to you. Then suddenly he was gone. That connection stunned Victor. He gripped the patrol car door for support. How did you notice that? Leo shrugged. I pay attention. It's all I have. The betrayal, the risk to his daughter, and the courage of this homeless stranger shifted something inside Victor. He looked at Leo, really looked at him for the first time, taking in the boy's thin frame, intelligent eyes, and the scrapes on his hands from fighting Alvarez. Why did you fire him? Reynolds asked, notebook ready. Victor's jaw tightened. Inappropriate conduct. He accessed security files he wasn't authorized to see. Files about Amelia's schedule, her medical history. He paused, voice dropping. I should have been more thorough. I just wanted him gone. You should have reported it, Reynolds said. I didn't want it getting out. Bad publicity. Victor's voice was hollow with regret. I paid him severance to go away quietly. Dad, Amelia called from the bench. What's happening? Victor returned to his daughter, kneeling beside her. Everything's okay now, sweetheart. But his voice lacked conviction. It was Edward, wasn't it? Amelia asked, surprising everyone. I recognized his cologne. Victor stared at his daughter, amazed and disturbed by her perception. Yes. Why would he do this? Amelia's voice trembled. Victor couldn't answer. The question hung in the air as officers continued processing the scene. Reporters had begun to gather at the police line. Cameras focused on the millionaire and his daughter. Leo started to back away, sensing his role was finished. This wasn't his world. Wealthy people, police protection, news stories. He'd done what he needed to do. Now it was time to disappear again. Wait, Victor called out, noticing Leo's retreat. Please, don't go yet. Victor asked to speak to Leo privately. Though still suspicious, he had to understand why this boy had risked his life. Officer Reynolds hesitated but eventually stepped aside, allowing them space near a cluster of oak trees away from the growing crowd of onlookers. I need to understand, Victor began, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. You could have been hurt. Killed even. Why would you do that for a stranger? Leo shifted his weight, uncomfortable with direct questions. For years, his survival had depended on avoiding attention, not inviting it. I don't know. I just did it. Victor studied the boy's face, looking for signs of calculation or ulterior motives. He found none. Most people would have called the police and stayed out of it. Most people aren't paying attention, Leo replied. By the time anyone noticed, he would have had her in a car. A painful silence stretched between them. The businessman used to being in control, and the street kid used to being invisible. They represented opposite ends of a society that rarely intersected except in moments of crisis. How old are you? Victor finally asked. 16, I think. Leo didn't meet his eyes. Maybe 17 now. December birthday. You think? Been a while since anyone celebrated it. Victor nodded slowly, absorbing this. Where are your parents? Leo, without exaggeration or complaint, recounted how he'd lived on the streets since the age of 10, surviving by collecting cans and odd jobs. His mother had struggled with addiction, cycling through boyfriends who grew increasingly abusive. The last one had given 10-year-old Leo a choice: leave or get beaten. He'd chosen to leave. Foster care wasn't better, Leo added, anticipating Victor's next question. Tried that for a while. Ended up back on the street. Victor listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. Years of business negotiations had taught him to mask his emotions, but inside, he felt a mounting discomfort. This child, had been surviving alone while Victor's own daughter wanted for nothing. I never expected anything in return, Leo concluded. I only knew the girl was in danger, and I couldn't look away. What surprised Victor wasn't just Leo's bravery, but his clarity. The boy didn't ask for help, food, or money. He spoke with dignity and concern only for Amelia. Victor, a man used to manipulations and false gratitude, found himself disarmed by Leo's pure intention. You need medical attention, Victor observed, noticing the cuts on Leo's hands and a bruise forming on his cheekbone. I've had worse. Leo almost smiled. Victor reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, hesitated, then replaced it. Money seemed suddenly inadequate, even insulting. This wasn't a transaction. Dad, Amelia called, being guided toward them by an officer. Are you still talking to Leo? Can I join you? Victor glanced at Leo, who nodded. We're over here, sweetheart. Amelia approached, her hand lightly touching the officer's arm for guidance. Bella walked beside her, alert and protective. When they reached the trees, Amelia released the officer and stood uncertainly. "Leo?" she asked the air around her. "I'm here," he answered quietly. "To your right." Amelia turned toward his voice and extended her hand. The gesture was so trusting, so vulnerable that Leo hesitated before taking it. "Thank you," she said simply, "for seeing what others didn't." The irony wasn't lost on any of them, the blind girl thanking someone for seeing. Leo's fingers wrapped gently around hers, a bridge between worlds that should never have connected. "You have good instincts," Leo told her. "You knew something was wrong before anyone else." Amelia nodded. "But I didn't know what to do about it." "You did." Victor watched this exchange with growing awareness. For years, he'd protected Amelia through systems, security guards, cameras, schedules. He'd built walls around her, believing safety came from isolation. Yet here was this boy who had nothing, who had protected her through human connection and awareness. A police officer approached with a clipboard. "Mr. Dolan, we need your statement. And the press is asking for comments." Victor nodded. "Give me a moment." When the officer stepped away, Victor turned back to Leo and Amelia. His daughter was still holding the boy's hand, her face animated as she asked him questions about how he knew to intervene. "The way he moved," Leo was explaining. "Too deliberate. Too focused on you specifically." Victor made a decision then, one that surprised even himself. Perhaps it was gratitude or guilt or recognition of something he'd been missing in his approach to life. Perhaps it was seeing his daughter smile genuinely for the first time in months. "Leo," he interrupted, "would you come with us? To our home. You need medical attention, food, proper rest." Leo tensed. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity," Victor said firmly. "It's the bare minimum of what you deserve after what you did today." Amelia squeezed Leo's hand. "Please say yes. I have so many questions for you." "Just for today," Victor added, sensing Leo's hesitation. No strings attached. Leo looked from father to daughter, weighing his options. The street had taught him to be wary of unexpected offers. But something about Amelia's hopeful expression and Victor's awkward sincerity felt different from the usual pity or manipulation he encountered. "Okay," he finally agreed. "Just for today." Then, in front of the police, the media, and bystanders, Victor made a gesture that stunned everyone. He embraced Leo and publicly called him the boy who saved my world. It was not a performance. It was the beginning of something genuine. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment. The millionaire in his expensive suit embracing the homeless boy in tattered clothes. Headlines would read, "Street Hero Saves Blind Heiress," and "Dolan Fortune Protected by Homeless Teen." But none of the news stories would capture what really happened in that moment. For Victor, it was the first embrace he'd offered anyone besides Amelia in years. For Leo, it was the first time an adult had touched him with kindness rather than cruelty since he was a small child. And for Amelia, listening to the murmurs of surprise around them, it was confirmation that her father was still capable of seeing beyond his protected world. As they walked toward Victor's waiting car, reporters shouted questions. Victor ignored them all, keeping one hand on Amelia's arm and the other on Leo's shoulder, guiding them both through the chaos. "We'll sort everything out at home," he told them. "Together." Leo nodded, still stunned by the turn of events. Hours ago, he'd been sleeping under a gazebo. Now he was walking toward a luxury car with people who looked at him like he mattered. It didn't make sense. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for this moment. "I don't belong in your world," he whispered to Victor. "Maybe not," Victor acknowledged quietly. "Or maybe my world needs to change." In the following days, Victor invited Leo to his home to thank him properly. Amelia insisted he stay longer. She said she trusted Leo more than most people she knew. What started as a formal invitation turned into a temporary arrangement. Leo was offered a room, food, and clothes. But more importantly, he was offered dignity. The Dolan estate sprawled across 3 acres in the most exclusive neighborhood in town. As the car pulled through wrought iron gates, Leo pressed himself against the leather seat, suddenly aware of how much he didn't belong. The mansion loomed ahead, all stone and glass and perfect symmetry. "It's too much," he whispered to Amelia, who sat beside him in the back seat. She smiled. "That's what everyone says the first time. Just wait until you try to find the bathroom without help." Victor led them inside. where a housekeeper named Mrs. Chun greeted them with practiced efficiency. She showed no surprise at Leo's appearance, though he noticed her eyes lingering on his tattered backpack. "Mrs. Chun, this is Leo," Victor said formally. "He'll be staying with us for a while. Please prepare the blue guest room." "Of course, Mr. Dolan." Mrs. Chun nodded. "Dinner will be ready at 7. Leo stood awkwardly in the massive foyer, afraid to touch anything. The marble floor gleamed beneath his worn sneakers. A chandelier hung overhead, refracting light in patterns across the walls. He'd never seen anything like it outside of movies. "Come on," Amelia said, reaching for his arm. "I'll show you around. I know this place by heart." It struck Leo as strange, being guided by someone who couldn't see. But Amelia moved confidently through her home, trailing one hand lightly along the wall. She described each room they passed with surprising detail. The kitchen with its ridiculously huge island that Dad never uses. The formal dining room where nobody ever actually eats. The library with books from floor to ceiling that collect dust. "How do you know all the colors?" Leo asked as she described the forest green drapes in the study. "I wasn't always blind," Amelia explained. "I lost my sight when I was 7. Optic nerve damage from a fall." She said this matter-of-factly, without self-pity. "I remember colors. I remember what things look like, more or less." Leo nodded, then realized she couldn't see the gesture. "That must be hard." "Sometimes," she admitted. "But other senses compensate. Like right now, I can tell you're nervous because your breathing changed. And you smell like pine trees and something else. Maybe cinnamon?" Leo laughed softly. "The pine is probably from sleeping under trees. No idea about the cinnamon." They reached the blue guest room, which was larger than any space Leo had ever claimed as his own. A king-sized bed dominated the center, with a private bathroom attached. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a garden. Leo stood in the doorway, overwhelmed. "Too much?" Amelia asked, sensing his hesitation. "Way too much," he confirmed. "I'm used to less." At first, Leo was overwhelmed. The marble floors, the chandeliers, the servants, it felt like another universe. He moved carefully, always trying not to overstep. But Amelia talked to him every day, asking about his life, making him laugh, and reminding him that he belonged there. The first dinner was excruciating. Leo didn't know which fork to use or how to respond to Mrs. Chin's quiet offers of more food. Victor attempted small talk, but quickly ran out of safe topics. Only Amelia seemed comfortable, filling silences with questions about Leo's favorite books. "You read a lot?" Victor asked, surprised. Leo nodded. "Libraries are warm and free. Librarians don't mind if you stay all day as long as you're quiet." Something flickered across Victor's face. Pain, perhaps, or guilt. He cleared his throat. "What kind of books?" "Anything with adventure," Leo replied. "Stories about people who start with nothing and build something. Or science. Physics especially." "Physics?" Victor leaned forward, interested. "Self-taught. YouTube videos at the public computers. And textbooks from the library." Leo shrugged, embarrassed by the attention. "It's just interesting how things work." The conversation shifted then, becoming more natural. Victor, it turned out, had studied engineering before turning to business. He described a solar panel project his company had recently funded, and Leo asked technical questions that impressed both father and daughter. That night, lying in the too-soft bed, Leo stared at the ceiling and wondered how long it would last. Experience had taught him that good things were temporary. Tomorrow, Victor might remember that Leo was a liability, a street kid with no documentation, no education, no place in his world. Tomorrow, the police might have more questions. Tomorrow, normalcy would return. But tomorrow came, and then another day, and another. Victor arranged for a doctor to check Leo's injuries from the fight. Amelia showed him her music collection and taught him how to use her adaptive technology. Mrs. Chin quietly replaced his worn clothes with new ones, leaving them folded on his bed without comment. Slowly, Leo began to change. He accepted that it was okay to be cared for. The first real shower in months washed away layers of grime. Regular meals restored color to his face. Sleep, deep, unguarded sleep, came easier each night. A week after his arrival, Victor knocked on Leo's door with a proposal. "I've been thinking," he began awkwardly, "about your education." Leo tensed. Here it was, the conversation about what happened next. About why he couldn't stay. "You're clearly intelligent," Victor continued. It's a waste for you not to be in school. I can't go back to public school, Leo said flatly. I'd need an address, guardianship paperwork, records I don't have. Victor nodded. I know. That's why I've arranged for a tutor. Someone who can assess where you are academically and help you catch up. He paused. If you wanna, that is. Leo stared at him. Why would you do that? Victor seemed genuinely puzzled by the question. Because you deserve it. Because you saved my daughter. Because no child should be denied education due to circumstances beyond their control. I'm not a charity case, Leo insisted, the old defensiveness rising. No, Victor agreed. You're not. You're someone who's never had a fair chance. I'm in a position to change that. He hesitated. Consider it payment for a debt I can never fully repay. Leo considered this, weighing pride against opportunity. I need to earn my keep somehow. Victor smiled. We can discuss that. Perhaps you could help Amelia with her studies. She mentions you're patient at explaining things. That evening, Leo sat with Amelia in the garden. She was playing a piece on her phone, classical music that made Leo think of rainfall. Dad told me about the tutor, she said. You're staying then? For now, Leo replied cautiously. Until I figure things out. Amelia's hand found his on the bench between them. I'm glad. It's been different with you here. Better. How? She considered this. Dad talks more. Actually talks, not just gives instructions or asks about homework. And she hesitated. I feel less alone. Leo understood. Despite the wealth surrounding her, Amelia had been isolated by her blindness, by her father's protectiveness, by the walls that money had built. Somehow, his presence had created a bridge between father and daughter that hadn't existed before. He started taking classes, learning things he never thought he'd get a chance to study. The walls he had built for survival began to soften, not crumbling entirely. Leo kept his backpack packed, ready to leave at a moment's notice, but softening enough to let hope creep in. Despite the comfort and opportunity, Leo carried hidden scars. One evening, Victor found him sleeping on the floor beside the bed. When asked why, Leo explained that soft beds made him feel too vulnerable. On the street, you stayed alert. That night, Victor sat down and listened to Leo's full story. Abandonment, hunger, loss, things no child should face. It was past midnight when Victor went to check on Leo. The boy had seemed withdrawn at dinner, picking at his food and answering questions with single words. Concerned, Victor knocked softly on the guest room door. When no answer came, he eased it open. The bed was empty, covers neatly made. For a moment, Victor thought Leo had left, returned to the streets without saying goodbye. Then he noticed a shape on the floor beside the far side of the bed. Leo lay curled on a blanket, using his backpack as a pillow, sound asleep. Leo, Victor said gently, kneeling beside him. Leo, wake up. The boy's eyes snapped open instantly. He sat up, alert and defensive, before recognizing Victor. What's wrong? Leo asked, his voice rough with sleep. You're on the floor, Victor pointed out. Is something wrong with the bed? Leo rubbed his eyes, embarrassed. No, the bed's fine. It's just hard to sleep in it. Hard to sleep in a comfortable bed. Leo looked away. When you're used to sleeping with one eye open, soft beds make you feel too vulnerable. Can't hear what's coming. Can't react fast enough. The words hung in the air between them. Victor sat down on the floor, his back against the bed frame. The millionaire in silk pajamas and the street kid in borrowed sweatpants, separated by experience rather than just wealth. Tell me, Victor said simply. At first, Leo shook his head. He'd learned early that people didn't really want to hear his story. They wanted sanitized versions that made them feel good about helping, not the ugly truths of survival. I mean it, Victor insisted. I want to understand. Something in Victor's voice, an earnestness, a lack of pity, made Leo start talking. Once he began, the words poured out. His mother's addiction that started with prescription painkillers after a work injury. The boyfriends who came and went, each one meaner than the last. The final one who gave 10-year-old Leo an ultimatum. Leave or get beaten. I packed a backpack and climbed out my window, Leo explained. Figured Mom would come looking for me once she realized I was gone. His voice flattened. She never did. Victor listened without interrupting as Leo described his first night alone, huddled in a park bathroom, terrified of every sound. How he'd tried to shelter, but left after older kids stole his backpack. How he'd learned which dumpsters had the best food, which libraries stayed open latest, which cops would look the other way if he slept in the park. The worst part wasn't the hunger, Leo said, or the cold. It was feeling invisible. People look right through you when you're homeless, like you're not even human. Victor, who had always believed money solved everything, felt helpless for the first time. He saw his own failures, the emotional absence in Amelia's life, the gaps wealth couldn't fill. He realized he hadn't just been saved that day in the park. He'd been reminded of what it means to be truly human. "Did you ever try to go back home?" he asked. Leo nodded. After about 6 months, the apartment was empty. Landlord said they'd been evicted. No forwarding address. He picked at a loose thread on the blanket. "I checked obituaries at the library for a while, thinking maybe she'd died. Nothing. She just disappeared." Victor thought about his own response to loss, how he'd buried himself in work after his wife died, leaving Amelia with nannies and tutors. How he'd built wealth as a shield against pain. "I thought I was protecting Amelia," Victor admitted, "by keeping her close, by controlling everything around her." "You were," Leo said, "just not from what she needed protection from." "What do you mean?" "Loneliness," Leo replied. "That's what she talks about most. Being alone in a house full of people who work for her dad." The observation hit Victor like a physical blow. How had this boy seen in weeks what Victor had missed for years? "When my wife died," Victor said slowly, "I promised I'd keep Amelia safe. I thought that meant security systems, bodyguards, the best schools. I didn't realize that she needed you." Leo finished. "Not your money or your protection, just you." They sat in silence for a while, the mansion quiet around them. Victor noticed how Leo's eyes still darted to the door occasionally, assessing escape routes out of habit. "Would you recognize your mother if you saw her?" Victor finally asked. Leo hesitated. "I think so. It's been 7 years, but yeah, I'd know her. I could hire someone to look for her," Victor offered. "If you wanted." Leo's expression closed off. "Why would I want that? She didn't look for me." "Maybe she tried," Victor suggested gently. "Maybe she couldn't. Or maybe she was relieved I was gone. One less problem to deal with." Leo's voice was flat, practiced. He'd told himself this story so many times it had hardened into truth. Victor recognized the defense mechanism, the wall built to protect against hope and its inevitable disappointment. He'd built similar walls after his wife's death. "Either way," Victor said carefully, "you deserve to know." Leo looked at him sharply. "And if she's dead? Or worse, if she's alive and doesn't want to see me?" "Then you'll know that too," Victor replied. "And it won't be because you didn't try." Amelia also sensed the change. Her bond with Leo deepened. Though she couldn't see him, she said she could feel his presence in ways that comforted her. He gave her strength. She gave him purpose. They became inseparable. In the morning, Amelia found Leo in the kitchen, helping Mrs. Chun prepare breakfast. He moved with careful precision, measuring coffee grounds while the housekeeper mixed pancake batter. "I smell coffee," Amelia said, making her way to her usual seat. "And Leo smiled. "How do you know it's me? You walk differently than Dad or Mrs. Chun. Lighter, like you're trying not to be noticed." She tilted her head. "But you're sad today. I can hear it in your voice." Mrs. Chun discreetly moved to another part of the kitchen, giving them privacy. "Your dad found me sleeping on the floor last night," Leo admitted, placing a mug of coffee in Amelia's outstretched hands. "We talked. About before." Amelia wrapped her fingers around the warm mug. "About your mom?" Leo had told her parts of his story during their long conversations in the garden. Never the worst parts. Never the hunger that made him dizzy or the man who'd offered him money to do things that still made him feel sick, but enough that she understood. "Yeah," he confirmed. He offered to look for her. "Will you let him?" Leo poured himself coffee, buying time. "I don't know. What if she doesn't want to be found?" Amelia considered this. "Then at least you'll know you tried. That matters." She paused. "When Mom died, Dad tried to erase her. He put away all her photos. Stopped saying her name. I think he thought it would hurt less if we pretended she never existed." "Did it?" "No," Amelia said softly. "It made it worse. Like I'd lost both of them." Leo understood then that their wounds mirrored each other, his from abandonment, hers from overprotection. Both had created absences that shaped them. "Maybe we're both broken in ways that fit together," he suggested, surprising himself with the observation. Amelia smiled. "I like that. Broken doesn't mean ruined." That afternoon, Leo approached Victor in his home office. The room intimidated him. All dark wood and leather-bound books and expensive technology. Victor looked up from his computer, reading glasses perched on his nose. "Can I ask you something?" Leo began. Victor nodded. "Of course. If we do find my mom, what then? What's the plan?" Victor removed his glasses. "That would depend on the situation, on what you want." Leo took a deep breath. "I want to stay here, with you and Amelia, even if we find her." The words hung between them, vulnerable and honest. Leo had never asked for anything so substantial before. Victor studied him for a long moment. "This is your home now, Leo, for as long as you want it to be." The simple statement contained everything: acceptance, commitment, belonging. Leo nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in his throat. Months later, Leo stood on a stage at a foundation gala organized by Victor and Amelia. Dressed in a tailored suit, he was barely recognizable. The foundation's mission? To support homeless youth with education, shelter, and mentorship. Leo was the first speaker. With a steady voice, he spoke about second chances and the blind girl who saw him when no one else did. The ballroom of the Grand Hotel gleamed with crystal and silver. 300 guests in formal were sat at tables adorned with white flowers, their attention fixed on the young man at the podium. If any of them noticed Leo's hands trembling slightly, they gave no sign. 6 months ago, I was invisible, Leo began, his voice carrying through the perfect acoustics. I had no name, no future, no place in the world. I existed on the margins, in the spaces between the lives you all take for granted. In the front row, Amelia sat beside Victor, her hand resting on Bella's head. She wore a blue dress that matched her eyes, her hair swept up elegantly. Victor watched Leo with unmistakable pride. When I saw Amelia being attacked that day in the park, I didn't think about consequences. I just acted. Leo paused, looking directly at father and daughter. What I couldn't have known was that in saving her, I was also saving myself. The search for Leo's mother had ended 3 months earlier. The private investigator Victor hired had traced her to a rehabilitation facility 2 states away. After years of addiction, Sarah Miller had finally sought help following a near-fatal overdose. When told her son had been looking for her, she'd broken down. The reunion had been difficult, tears and guilt, and 7 years of absence between them. Sarah was fragile in recovery, unable to care for herself, let alone a teenage son. But Leo had found something he needed: the knowledge that his mother had never stopped loving him, had never willingly abandoned him. The boyfriend had lied, telling her Leo had run away after an argument while she was at work. By the time she discovered the truth, the trail was cold. The foundation we're launching tonight isn't about charity, Leo continued. It's about connection, about seeing the invisible among us. The Dahlin Youth Foundation would provide not just shelter and education for homeless teens, but legal advocacy, mental health services, and family reunification when possible. Victor had committed $10 million as initial funding, with a matching challenge to the wealthy audience before them. Statistics tell us there are over 1.5 million homeless youth in this country, Leo said. But statistics don't tell you what it feels like to sleep with one eye open. To be hungry not just for food, but for someone to look at you and see a person, not a problem. As he spoke, Leo caught sight of his mother sitting in the middle of the room. Sarah looked older than her 38 years, her face lined with the consequences of hard living. But her eyes were clear now, fixed on her son with wonder and sorrow and pride. Victor had arranged for her treatment, for an apartment near them, for the chance to rebuild what had been broken. I stand before you tonight not as a success story, but as a work in progress, Leo acknowledged. I'm still learning how to trust, how to accept help, how to believe in permanence. He looked at Amelia, who seemed to sense his gaze and smiled in his direction. Their connection had only deepened over the months. She had taught him patience. He had taught her independence. Together, they had taught Victor how to be present in ways money couldn't buy. What I've learned from Amelia Dahlin is that true vision has nothing to do with eyesight. She saw worth in me when I couldn't see it in myself. The audience responded with warm applause. Several people wiped away tears. Victor's business associates, men and women who had known him for decades, exchanged surprised glances. The cold, driven CEO they knew had transformed over the past months into someone more human, more accessible. Victor watched proudly, his eyes moist. He had not only gained a son, he had regained his sense of humanity. Amelia, seated beside him, held his hand. She smiled toward the sound of Leo's voice, glowing with pride. When Leo returned to their table after his speech, Amelia reached for him, pulling him into a tight hug. "That was perfect," she whispered. "Mom would have loved you." It was the first time she had mentioned her mother so easily, without the shadow of loss darkening her face. Leo hugged her back, meeting Victor's gaze over her shoulder. "Thank you," Victor mouthed silently. The legal adoption papers had been finalized the previous week. Leo Miller was now officially Leo Miller Dahlin, with Victor as his legal guardian until he turned 18. Sarah had signed the papers from her treatment facility, acknowledging that while she would always be his mother, Victor could provide the stability she couldn't. "We should check on Mom," Leo said as he released Amelia. "This is a lot for her to handle." Victor nodded. "I had Mrs. Chen sitting with her, but yes, let's all go." They made their way through the crowded ballroom, stopping frequently as Victor's associates congratulated them on the foundation launch. Leo noticed how Victor kept one hand on Amelia's arm and the other on Leo's shoulder, unwilling to lose contact with either of them. Sarah stood as they approached, nervously smoothing her borrowed dress. "You were amazing," she told Leo, her voice catching. "I'm so proud of you." "We all are," Victor added, including her in the circle of family with that simple statement. Later that night, as the gala wound down, Leo found himself alone on the hotel's terrace. The city lights spread below him, a carpet of stars mirrored on earth. He heard the door open behind him and turned to see Victor. "There you are," Victor said. "Amelia was wondering where you disappeared to." "Just needed some air," Leo explained. "It's been an intense night." Victor nodded, joining him at the railing. "Too much?" "No," Leo answered thoughtfully. "Just different. 6 months ago, I was digging through trash for food. Tonight, people paid $5,000 a plate to hear me speak. They got their money's worth," Victor said with a small smile. "You were eloquent." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the cool night air a relief after the warmth of the ballroom. "I've been thinking," Victor finally said, "about what happens next. You'll be starting formal school in the fall. Amelia will be applying to colleges. Things will change." Leo tensed slightly. Despite the adoption, despite everything, part of him still waited for the other shoe to drop. "Change how?" "I've been so focused on building the business all these years," Victor explained. "Traveling constantly, working 16-hour days. I told myself it was for Amelia's future, but really, it was easier than being present. And now I'm stepping back. Promoting Jenkins to CEO. I'll stay on as chairman, but no more constant travel, no more missed dinners." Victor turned to face Leo directly. "I don't want to miss any more of Amelia's life. Or yours." Leo had gone from an invisible boy to a symbol of resilience. In the end, it wasn't just about saving someone from danger. It was about saving each other and building a family not by blood, but by courage, compassion, and choice. "We're pretty different, you and me," Leo observed. "Different backgrounds, different experiences." "Yes," Victor agreed. "And yet here we are." "Here we are," Leo echoed, looking back at the city lights. Family. The word still felt new in his mouth, fragile and precious. For most of his life, family had been a wound rather than a comfort. Now it was becoming something else, something built rather than broken. "Your mother asked me something interesting today," Victor said. "She wanted to know if she could volunteer with the foundation once she completes her program. She said she understands addiction from the inside, that she might be able to help other parents." Leo felt a complicated mix of emotions: pride, worry, hope. "What did you tell her?" "That we'd find a place for her," Victor replied. "That recovery is a journey, not a destination." Leo nodded, recognizing the wisdom in the answer. His relationship with his mother was still healing, still finding its new shape. There would be difficult days ahead, setbacks and uncertainties, but there would also be support. Amelia said something similar about blindness once, Leo remembered. That it's not something to overcome, but something to integrate into a full life. Victor smiled. "She's wise beyond her years. Always has been." The terrace door opened again, and Amelia stepped out, Bella guiding her. "There you two are? Are you having a father-son moment without me?" "Never," Leo said, moving to take her arm. "Just getting some fresh air." "Liar," she said affectionately. "You're having deep, meaningful conversations. I can hear it in your voices." Victor laughed. "Caught red-handed." The three of them stood together at the railing, a tableau of unlikely family. Below them, the foundation gala continued, the beginning of something that would help other invisible children find their way to safety, to connection, to home. "So," Amelia said, breaking the comfortable silence, "what's next for us?" Leo looked at Victor, then back to Amelia. "Everything," he said simply. "Everything is next."